Now, you mentioned in your list of experiences that you managed an acquisition,
Yeah.
which is definitely a unique experience for a product manager, especially at a big company. Um, Tell us a little bit more about the end-to-end process of like how did that start?
Yeah.
What was the real meat of it? How did it close and get integrated into the our tech stack? And what role and skills as a product manager did you bring to the table there?
Yeah, so this role was super unique, I would say. So, like again, as I kind of mentioned, like 6.5 years into my career, I was kind of thinking like, okay, I've been on the web browser space my entire career. I should probably move to like the B2B, business to business
Mm,
space and figure out like how does Microsoft really make all of its money?
yeah.
And the sweet spot that I've always kind of thought would be the great point in my career to kind of get to and really kind of dig in and sit at would be like the GPM or group product manager role. And
Uh-huh.
so, I wanted an experience where it was kind of like, hey, I'm overseeing like teams of people. And that kind of experience can be really difficult to get. Like, I think a lot of people who get to the
Yeah.
GPM level are just like, I've been a lead for a long time, and then the opportunity opens up and you step into it that way. But I was trying to figure out like, how can I like tee
Yeah.
myself up for that and at least start to build those skills early? Um,
Hmm.
and so I was actually approached by one of the like corporate vice presidents that over in Microsoft Viva. I'd worked with him on Edge in the past. And he was like, hey, I'm looking for someone to manage this acquisition from LinkedIn, of Glint from LinkedIn to Microsoft.
Hmm.
And, he pitched it basically in a way that was exactly aligned. Like, he didn't know about my career goals at the time, but he
Okay.
pitched it in a
Yeah.
way that was just like, wow, that is exactly it, right? Like, it's working with a ton of different leadership teams. It's, decomposing basically an entire company into work streams and figuring out like
I
how
see.
do we take this thing that has existed at LinkedIn, that existed before LinkedIn, that had its own culture, its own, processes, its own tech stack that was so different from what we had at Microsoft, and
Hmm.
like make it meet, which is challenging because Microsoft just has so much inertia behind it. It's a big company. It's hard to move, these systems that have been in place for a long time, and integrate this thing that's brand new into it. Um,
Totally.
so that was how I got started. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it was not a traditional product management role at all. I would say it was a lot more kind of like program management.
Hmm.
And I think the thing that I learned there was just like really what it means to run like a business at scale, like across the
Got
board.
it.
Like, and so like the thing that I think was critical for me to do early on, and luckily I had like a great support network. There was other people that had managed acquisitions in the past that I was able to leverage, was like getting all of the work streams in place, getting leaders in place, and going deep and really kind of understanding the business that was being integrated. So what I ended
I
up
see.
doing was decomposing this basically into, God, I don't know, probably like 10 buckets. It was like, we had the product work stream, we had customer migration, how are you going to, get
Wow.
customer contracts from LinkedIn to Microsoft. There
Okay.
was a marketing work stream, a sales work stream. There was a people transition and HR work stream because we had to bring, actual headcount from LinkedIn to Microsoft, which is not just a simple transfer. And there's like
Yeah.
benefits and compensation and all those things to think about. We had a technical support work stream to basically ramp up all of our technical support engineers at Microsoft to be able to support this new product that was already running at scale.
Wow.
Glint was unique because it had this large professional services arm, which was all these post sales consultants that like isn't really a business that Microsoft is in. So being able to figure out how
Mm.
do we home them, and how do we bring that over, and like what's the business model, and how are we going to like charge for this stuff? That was a
Yeah.
separate work stream. We had partner and our ecosystem play, and then also just like all the systems and the tools that Glint was using were not
Right.
standard to Microsoft. So it's like, how do we
Right.
procure them? Which ones can we like transition over to
Hmm.
what we have at Microsoft versus which ones do we need to like go procure,
Hmm.
and keep around because it would be like super disruptive to the business is not.
Totally.
So
Totally.
those work streams, and then identifying the right owners within the business, and then getting deep enough into each of those to be able to understand like
Hmm.
where are the rocks, how can I help unstick them, who are the people I need to talk to at Microsoft and connect.
Yeah.
It was this kind of orchestrator role that was very different than anything I'd done in the past.
did you this it's such an honestly amazing experience, and I'm curious, it sounds like you did kind of have a framework that you kind of sat back and thought about, this is the way I should approach it.
Yep.
Can you speak a little bit more to the details of that framework if possible? You mentioned you had those 10 buckets,
Yep.
and then also, like, how did you know about delegating? Like, this
Yeah.
is what I need to delegate versus this is what I need to take myself, or I need to take it to here and then
Yeah.
I can delegate it right to the right owner.
Yeah, no, that was the consistent struggle and the consistent balance. I think I would
Mm.
say is was difficult for me to strike, but I got better at it kind of towards the end. And
Yeah.
I think like so the framework, like I said, luckily I was able to kind of leverage the work of some of my other peers.
Mm.
They had done kind of something similar where they had those work streams, they had the owners, and so I was able to pull that kind of together, like and we had to create a couple more. Like Glint,
Yeah.
was unique in the fact that it had professional services. Our customer migration work stream was a lot bigger than some of the other acquisitions that we'd done in the past, so we kind of had to
Hmm.
right size it to fit Glint. And then in terms of delegation, it was it was kind of me working very closely. I embedded myself very deeply in the Glint leadership team. Like I actually ran their LT meetings, so it was good to like
Oh wow.
get with
Okay.
them and really understand like like how does
Yeah.
their business work, where are their minds at, who can I leverage for help, kind of thing. And it was basically kind of a exercise of like, is there someone who is more experienced, that could take this on? So for things
Mm.
like product and engineering, like yeah, there were
Hmm.
some deep product and engineering experts at Glint that was like, you should definitely run that work
Run
stream,
that. Yeah.
and I will make sure that I'm unblocking you. I'll help you report status up. I can help you navigate the Microsoft world. So if there's
Right.
things you need, if there's confusion around, like compliance, although we did have some folks on the Microsoft side who were like our, compliance and product experts as well. But I could kind of help, connect the dots there. Um, versus the things that were net new, like customer migration, I ran that entire work stream myself because it was kind of like there
Okay.
wasn't anyone at Microsoft that was well versed in this, and there wasn't like
Wow.
Glint had never had to do a customer migration at that
Yeah.
scale, like into such a big company. So I ran that one myself.
Yeah.
So I'd say like that was kind of the way that I went through it, is just kind of like identifying like, is there an expert either on the Microsoft or the Glint side who would be well versed to take this on, versus like, is this just net new and we need to go figure it out? In which case, like, yeah, sign me
It's
up, I
me.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then I think one last thing I'm interested in on this topic is culture. Like, you mentioned how Glint had a culture even before LinkedIn acquired them.
Yeah.
How, despite now they're integrating folks in different parts of the business,
Yep.
did you see, or were there specific things you had to do to kind of help the Glint leadership team preserve their culture through this transition?
Yeah, it was a some preservation and some evolution, I would say.
Hmm.
Like I think there was originally kind of some, I mean, it's scary, right? Moving from,
Yeah.
even LinkedIn, the size that it is, moving to Microsoft, there was a lot of kind of, I think, angst around just like, are we going to be able to, fit in and preserve our culture? And
Yeah.
I think like and I will be honest, like Microsoft has like, I mean, we are, a trillion-dollar company that has deep obligation,
Yeah.
this, right? Like deep obligations in terms of privacy and compliance and trust and security and all of those things.
Hmm.
And so like being able to kind of like bridge that gap, I think, was super critical, where it's kind of
Hmm.
like, it like, I think there was a lot of just kind of like, we're used to the startup world where we can go fast and like Microsoft is so slow, and it's like, yes, but like here's why and here's how to navigate that. And so it
Hmm.
was a lot of just kind of like helping people realize that like the cultural differences at Microsoft were there for a reason, and then
Yeah.
also just helping bring the Glint culture into Microsoft too. Like they were very people first. So like, giving them a
Okay.
platform to be able to like share their learnings with our broad organization. And we had like a monthly town hall that was just the Glint folks, so they could still feel like they had their own connection, even as they
Mhm.
were moving into this like bigger organization. So yeah, it was about just kind of like helping them preserve the parts that kept them unique and like kept their team cohesive, while also
Right.
helping bring them along for the journey of like, hey, Microsoft does have its own culture, and like it can
Right.
seem a little daunting at first, but like here's how you navigate it.
Yeah. I just love how comprehensive this experience really is. It's really, I think, a leadership role, like
Yeah.
in earnest, for sure. Awesome.